Good morning to you from my car. I'd like to start by making a statement, and it's this. No one knows the nature of man as well as Satan. No one knows the nature of man as well as Satan. Remember, in the book of Job, Satan went to God and asked permission to afflict him. And Satan asked the question of God, does Job love thee for naught? Does Job worship you for nothing? And Satan had it in his mind all the time that people do things for ulterior motives. And he's used that all the time, right the way through the centuries, from the beginning of time, from when Eve was deceived in the garden. And then Satan turned round and said, "You shall not surely die." He was a liar from the beginning. And the way he works in our lives is exactly the same thing. What does he do with us? He starts off by luring us, doesn't he? The lust of the eyes and the pride of life. Our senses get magnetized. For men, it can often be the lure of the look of a lady. It can be food, it can be all kinds of things. Our will gets magnetized, doesn't it? And so Satan plays to our emotions. And then what's left is nothing, because our discernment is removed. And then our integrity is gone. And there's nothing worse than the loss of integrity, especially in somebody that you would expect to see integrity in all the time. Let's have a look here at some scripture to back that up. In 1 Samuel chapter 8, I'm looking here at the first 7 verses. This is when the people are starting to get restless for a king. But there was a reason behind it. And it came to pass, when Samuel was old, that he made his sons judges over Israel. Now the name of his firstborn was Joel, and the name of his second, Abiah, and they were judges in Beersheba. And his sons walked not in his ways, but turned aside after lucre, and took bribes and perverted judgment. Then all the elders of Israel gathered themselves together and came to Samuel unto Ramah, and said unto him, Behold, thou art old, and thy sons walk not in thy ways. Now make us a king to judge us like all the nations. See, there was something in the heart of man that wanted that splendor above them. But they wanted somebody who they thought would be a man of integrity. But at the same time, they were prepared to follow. They were prepared to be lured. And so eventually, of course, we know that King Saul came along and corruption came into the house of Israel through the line of kings, because we know that not many of them were good kings. And so it takes me to today. Let's fast forward and have a look at the kind of leadership that we've got in the world today. Justin Trudeau, Boris Johnson, Dan Andrews in Australia. And these are people of corrupted integrity. They seem to want to mean the best for their people, don't they? That's the way it comes across. Men like Boris Johnson here in the UK. These men were members, and probably are still many of them members of secret societies. We have one here in the UK called the Bullingdon Club, out of the elite universities. And the Bullingdon Club was somewhere where these young university students would get together, and they would hold all kinds of, I suppose you could call it like in the old days, banquets and feasts. And they were known for their bad behavior. But they backed one another. Corruption backs corruption, and bribery backs bribery. That's the way it works. And so Israel wanted this fantastic person to lead them. And of course, as we know, in these last days, we also want people to lead us, don't we? But we want people of integrity, but at the same time, as the world is becoming more and more blinded to the truth, the world is starting to follow men a bit like Samuel's sons. And the world is being bribed today. People have to keep their jobs. I see it in the comments very often. I took the procedure because I want to keep my job. Well, yesterday it was quite interesting because a doctor spoke out against our health minister here in the UK and challenged him directly with regard to the fact that he didn't think he needed the procedure because it's about to be mandated across the whole of the UK for workers in the health service next year, not next year, in April. And this man stood up against it, and he wasn't prepared to follow the narrative just to keep his job. Doctors, nurses, politicians, media, all in cahoots, all working together. People don't like the term conspiracy theory, but yet very often that's how Satan works. He works behind the scenes, and the power of corruption and bribery works behind the scenes. It's what they used to call a backhander, you know, giving somebody something in secret. And today that's happening across the whole world. As this pandemic, as they call it, has hit the world, people have had to stay at home. And they've been on what's known as furlough. Furlough was never a word that was used for people in the general populace. It was a very specific thing where you would take leave for a period of time, and usually a lengthy period of time, and be paid for it. And of course this is what's been happening across the Western world. People have been paid to stay at home. The ultimate bribery at work. But it's not a known bribery, isn't it? It's not something that men are aware that they're doing. It's something that the powers of evil are working against us and bringing about this apathy within man, just to sit back and say, well, we'll just let our leaders do what they have to do. They always know best for us, don't they? Well, Revelation 13, of course, has the ultimate leader about to come upon the earth. And I'd like to pick two verses out concerning that ultimate leader, the one that will bribe the whole world. Those that don't have the discernment, whose senses have been dulled. Let's just have a look at two verses here in Revelation 13. Verse 4. And they worshipped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast. And they worshipped the beast, saying, Who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? And verse 14, and he deceiveth them that dwell on the earth, by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the midst of the beast. Here we're talking about the false prophet, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast, which had the wound by a sword and did live. The beast and the false prophet working in cahoots together to bribe the whole world. People won't worship the Antichrist for nothing. We can see as we go on, can't we, how our lifestyles are improving by the moment with technology, how things are developing in the world and making life easier for everyone. And people will begin to say, well, yes, I will follow this man because he also promises peace and safety. And he will give us a good life. We won't even need to work. Some of us will be on permanent furlough, universal basic income, brought in by this man who will promise the world everything. And so people will follow. They won't follow for nothing. They'll follow because they can see that they're going to get something out of it. And that's how it will work. The will of people will be broken down by deception. And that's how Satan works. I'd like to finish with one verse of scripture. That's in Romans 1. That's verse 28. And even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a reprobate mind, to do those things which are not convenient. People get given over. Judas was given over, and then he was paid 30 pieces of silver, bribed to give away the only Son of God to the worldly authorities, basically to Satan himself. So today, as we see Satan work, bribing the souls of men, let's recognize what's in his nature. And let's recognize too what is in us, because we know how we can also be lured away. Many things can lure us away. And so let's walk today in our integrity and keep looking to the Lord. Have a blessed day.